thank Swami Vivekananda for giving the best welcome to all the world for the future. Sisters and brothers, great welcome to you. We are just having a slight technological silence moment as well. It is wonderful how everything bows to Sri Ramakrishna. We will be slowly inviting our speakers to the dais, and then we are just linking up the link to the YouTube, and we will begin. And I will take you with us. My name is Naidu, and thank you for being here. We will just start in 1 moment. Revered Swami and all our revered speakers as well, Professor Ruth Patel, MBE. We'll go through the introduction, but at first we are requesting from our UK Vedanta Center, our minister in charge is Swami Sarvasthananda, is requesting Swami Amarananda to light the lamps for Sri Ramakrishna, and following that we will have the chanting. It always comes in threes. So for the third time, namaste and welcome to the bridge of eternity. And we are here in an auspicious moment, the 18th of November, it is 2023, but it is the 75th anniversary of the founding of the UK Vedanta Center, which was founded on 18th November 1948. So you are all welcome, and we have a galaxy star cast of speakers. I just wanted to share with you a very few moments of what it has meant for me to be a visitor and a devotee and a student also through the time of the UK Vedanta Center. So when I came in 88 as, that's 1988, last century. I know we're discussing timelessness, but we are going to be provided with history and dates. It was established at Bourne End in Buckinghamshire. It was Unity House, the Vedanta Center. At that time, Swami Bhavananda was the minister in charge. And I just wanted to share with you one of his very striking pieces of advice. He had worked extensively with tribes in the Himalayas, so he was used to quite rough and raw conditions. So when those of us who came from the north of England and complained about the weather and cold, he'd laugh at them. And his famous signature was, what is the difference between a person who is positive and one who is negative? A person who is negative will always find a challenge, a real difficulty, and a loss of opportunity. But a person who is positive will always find a challenge, a way to make use of an opportunity. I always remember that as a student during my PhD at Leeds. He was followed, and the dates will come to you with our next speaker, by Swami Atmalokananda, who also continued taking on the reins at one end from Buckinghamshire with the Vedanta Center. And Swami Atmalokananda had a great, as all the Swamis do, a great knowledge of the scriptures, but he really gave us a kind of a great background in a lot of the Sanskrit and the meanings of the Upanishads in his lecture talks that continued. He then was followed by our present Swami Sarvasthananda. I just take this opportunity to say that in the time that Swami Sarvasthananda has been at the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center, huge waves of historic things have happened. COVID was a big one. And in that time, the world shifted because a lot of people would travel to the center and go to the shrine and find their peace. And as Swami Bhavananda had already established a sense of retreat, there were people who would come of all faiths, of all ethnicities, and this sort of continued, but everything went into a kind of an isolation during COVID. But Swami Sarvasthananda just grasped the blazing torch that Swami Vivekananda had left as a legacy for all of us. And he went digital. He, with the screens of Zoom, was in every home, every family, every day of the week, of the weekends, constantly building us up into a spiritual moment where there was so much despair and people who were in great fouts of bereavement, really, or who couldn't see their loved ones. The spiritual talk through the gospel, through the great master, through Holy Mother's teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, these continued night after night and day after day as a strong, strong meditation for all of us to learn more and lift ourselves. So we are really very grateful, Maharaj, for that. And my husband has also constantly supported this faith and this wonderful journey towards the spiritual goal. Is Chris Banfield and Swami Tripurananda, who now it's 1 year since he has passed away on the 16th of November, on the same day that the founder, Swami Ganananda, also gave up his body. Swami Tripurananda used to, with his love for literature and theatre, took my husband Chris and many of us through those bridges across cultures. I will just want to read a small quotation from Swami Vivekananda, which would aptly close my bit before I bring in my prestigious speakers. And It is from a lecture called Privilege, which was delivered at the Sesame Club in London by Swami Vivekananda in, I think, 1896. Forgive me, dear historians, for my inaccuracy. It is the spirit of things that I hold. And he talks about privilege, and he shows these contrasting landscapes of privilege, those who have and those who feel privileged by it, but put down those who don't have. But the framework, to my understanding of what he was really intending to say, was the great privilege of seva, of working relentlessly. That is the privilege, working towards the spirit and respecting and worshiping God in man. Very, very powerful. And I just want to conclude with this quotation of his. This is, let all the variations remain eternally. It is the very essence of life. We should all play in this way eternally. You will be wealthy and I should be poor. You will be strong and I should be weak. You will be learned and I ignorant. You will be very spiritual and I less so. But what of that? Let us remain so. But because you are physically or intellectually stronger, you must not have more privilege than I. And that you have more wealth is no reason why you should be considered greater than I. But that sameness is here in spite of the different conditions. The work of ethics has been and will be in the future not the destruction of variation and the establishment of sameness in the external world, which is impossible, for it would bring death and annihilation, but to recognize the unity in spite of all these variations, to recognize the God within, in spite of everything that frightens us, to recognize that infinite strength as the property of everyone, in spite of all apparent weakness, and to recognize the eternal, infinite, essential purity of the soul, in spite of everything to the contrary that appears on the surface. This we have to recognize. Taking one side alone, one half only of the position, is dangerous and liable to lead to quarrels. We must take the whole thing as it is, stand on it as our basis, and work it out in every part of our lives, as individuals and as unit members of society. Thank you. I would now like to welcome Mr.Atul Patel. Good, we've got all. I'm so sorry I began with the relevance. And yes, we would now like to invite Uma to sing the opening song. This is a meditative hymn on Sri Ramakrishna, composed by Swami Amarananda. Oh, Vidaya Kamaya Adhi Rajita Virikam Sadasavadinavi I would now like to invite Sanchita to come and sing. My humble prayers for the biggest and man's knowledge, the sitting blessing. My humble prayers to Swami,
Amarananda Maharaj, Swami Atmalokananda Maharaj, Swami Sarvasthananda Maharaj, and Professor Harris, and my humble pronouns to all of the witnesses.
Transporting voices that each of you have, Uma and Apal. Thank you for the meditative atmosphere also that is created by it. And now I welcome our speakers. Welcome to our newcomers. Please take your seats. Don't have to fasten seat belts. All will be well. You're in the right place. I'd like to welcome Atul Patel, MBE. He's one of our long-standing devotees from his childhood, and he's going to give us a wonderful journey through how, across the 75 years, with his father's retellings as well of the foundation since 1948 of the UK Vedanta Center. So very briefly, I'd like to introduce Atul Patel to all of us. So he graduated in 1981 and his career has covered social housing in the community, funding and regulation in the NGO sector, and a national regeneration policy in central government. In 2018, he was awarded the MBE in the Queen's New Year Honours for services to heritage and the community in the East Midlands. Atul was introduced to the Ramakrishna mission by his father, Bhogilal Patel, who lived with Swami Amarananda in the early 1960s. As a child, he had the privilege of being closely acquainted with Swami Bhuteshananda and Swami Atmalokananda at the Rajkot ashram. At the age of 11, he became the last disciple to be initiated by Swami Ganananda in September 1969, shortly before the Swami passed away. Whilst at school, he spent most of his summer holidays staying at the ashramas at Holland Park, Sharda Kutir in Devon and Bourne. So I welcome you to come and listen to history. Thank you.
Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. Pronouns to the respected Swamijis, Dr.Ruth, and to all of you. This picture actually that we see here today was the original picture at Masbate Shrine, and that was the picture in front of which I was initiated. I'm sorry. Quite emotional. So, a particular thank you to Swami Sarvasthananda Maharaj. He has been very supportive, very kind in opening up the archives and the files and a bit of the history of our ashrama, and his very kind support to find all these little things in the nooks and crannies. This is a project that is been started in the 75th year, but I think it will continue, and also with the help of my colleague Tony in all of this. Some of those of you who know what a sharp mind he has, it's been wonderful to gather some of this information together. And it's been quite a journey for myself as well. Swami Amarananda was born on 2nd October 1898 in Kerala, India. In fact, this particular fact we only found from a passenger list on the steamer Patel, that he was actually traveling back to India in 1955. His father was Ramakrishna Vedanta. He was educated at Madras University, gaining a gold medal for his master's degree in English. His pre-monastic name was C.R. Mahadevan. He joined the order in the 1920s after a struggle with his family. He was initiated into sannyasa by Swami Shivananda Mahapurush Maharaj and received the blessings of Holy Mother shortly before she passed away. He was the joint editor of the Vedanta Kesari from 1925 to 1926, and he wrote his first book, Sri Ramakrishna, His Unique Message, in 1936, as a tribute to the memory of Sri Ramakrishna on the occasion of his first centenary. The first edition was published in 1937, when the Second World War was looming. The second edition was published in 1946, after the atomic bombs had dropped. The third edition was as timely as the first two, being finalized just a few weeks before he passed away. In July 1939, he was sent to Mauritius by Belur at the request of the Hindu community there. And over the next 7 years or so, he successfully established a temple, a congregation, as well as a dispensary and an orphanage. Handing over to Swami Swasthananda, he left Mauritius in December 1946 on the steamer Alcantara, traveling first to South Africa and then touring USA, and he gave over 70 lectures or talks in each country. He arrived in the UK in October 1948 to stay for a few weeks until a passage could be booked for him back to India. Belur Math had sent Swami Avyaktananda to London a few years previously. However, with his withdrawal from the order, Swami Ganananda was asked to take charge. It is important to note the wider societal context at this time. Most adults had lived through 2 world wars, the second of which had ended, and people were war-weary. And people in the colonies were looking to escape the clutches of colonization. Everywhere, people were looking for a new and better future. The Swami's book recognized this broad sweep of history as the backdrop to the future work of the mission and the propagation of Sri Ramakrishna's unique message. So arriving in London, he first stayed with Mr. and Mrs. Sethia in Hampstead, then with a succession of other devotees. And amongst his key supporters at this time were Mr. Kenneth Walker and Professor Edward Thornton of Oxford University. There were also other loyal and long-time devotees and supporters, both from the English and Indian community. With their help, he quickly set about laying the foundations of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center. A public meeting was held in St. Ermin's Hotel in London on Sunday, 14th of November, 1948, where it was unanimously decided that a Vedanta center named after Sri Ramakrishna be begun, and that lectures and classes and other usual forms of activity be commenced as from the Thursday following, the 18th of November, 1948. Today. A subsequent meeting of friends and well-wishers was called by the Swami in his then apartments at 8 Bellside Avenue on Thursday, 1st of March, 1949, to set up an advisory board. The advisory board met on Saturday, 12th of March, 1949, at Kingsway Hall. The initial members were Miss C.M. Young, Miss Claire Mason, Mr. and Mrs. Setia, Mr. and Mrs. Narayan, Messrs. Mitra and Chaudhry, and L.J. Parker, with the Swami as chairman. They became the first members of the society and resolved that an official society called the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center be formed, that the Swami be appointed as the president and minister in charge, and that a draft constitution be prepared. The constitution was formally adopted on the 17th of June, 1949. In the early years, the center had no permanent home. The Swami stayed in various lodgings arranged by devotees, and lectures were held in public halls, such as the Kingsway Hall. But a publication called the Vedanta Bulletin was started in 1951, and later continued as Vedanta for East and West, which is still being published today. Eventually, the Swami was accommodated at a house at 68 Duke's Avenue, Muswell Hill, London. It was owned by a devotee, Mr. Edward Thornton, who later donated it to the center. This became the first home of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center from 1952. A few years later, in 1960, the adjoining property at 66 Duke's Avenue was purchased, primarily for women devotees. The work of the center then grew in leaps and bounds. As well as regular weekly lectures in London, the Swami gave talks in many other parts of the UK. 1963 was Swami Vivekananda's birth centenary. It was marked in a major way in London and around. A centenary committee was set up and an extensive program of events was held. Funds were raised with the generosity of another devotee and donor, Mr. Henry James Newlyn, to purchase a bigger and more central property at 54 Holland Park in 1965. It was named the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center Vivekananda Centenary Ashram. The Swami had long been planning for establishing a temple in London and had set up a fundraising committee for this purpose. Indeed, he had been to India himself during his several trips back to raise funds for it. The purchase of Holland Park seemed to fulfill this ambition. Some years later, with his health failing, Swami Amarananda retired in July 1969 and handed over to Swami Bhavyananda, who took over the reins from August 1969. Very shortly after that, on 16th of November 1969, Swami Ganananda Ji passed away. In 1977, the Holland Park property, along with a smaller cottage, Sarda Patel, purchased in 1971 in Devon, was sold and the centre moved to new premises at Unity House, Bourne End, in Buckinghamshire. This marked a long period of consolidation under Swami Bhavyananda, with the centre still being in the same place today. This consolidation came in a different age, an age of aeroplanes rather than steamers. And Swami Bhavyananda took the message further around the UK, Europe, and even Russia. Under his ministership, Swami Bhuteshananda, then vice president, visited London, our Bourne End Centre, in October 1988, just a few months before becoming president in December 1988. Swami Bhavyananda passed away on the 2nd of December 1993 after a period of ill health. Swami Atmalokananda had been assisting since 1991 and took over as the head of the center. He guided its affairs until 15th of April 2018, when Swami Sarvasthananda took charge. As I said, Maharaj has been most supportive of delving into the archives and helping document this history. My sincere thanks for his report, which has helped me also, as I said, to reconnect with my past. And in the course of research, I'm particularly proud to know two things. My father, Patel, met Swami Gananandaji in December 1959, and thus began his and my mother Sarojben's lifelong association with Sri Ramakrishna and his Sangha. The story of how he actually met Swami is interesting. He'd been here before us, he came before us for 2 years trying to study architecture. And if you can say he might have lost his way a little bit, he accidentally met somebody he knew in India on the tube and unburdened his mind to him, wishing to find the ashram. He said, had I managed to find the ashram, perhaps I would have had some peace. And the chap said, yes, of course, I know exactly where it is. 68 Duke's Avenue, Muswell Hill. Can you imagine such a chance meeting on the tube in London? And that, as I said, opened the way for our family. Meanwhile, my mother and I were in India, and we were in strained circumstances. Swami Gananandaji wrote to Swami Budeshanandaji, who was at that time head of Rajkot Center. And as a result, we moved from Baroda to live in Rajkot in lodgings that he found for us right opposite the ashram. So from the age of about 5, the ashrama and the Swamis there were all my father figures, if you like. And then when we joined my father in 1966 in London, of course, we came into contact with Swami Gananandaji and my initiation on the 27th of September 1969. Of course, my father, having lived with the Swami, should have been first before me, really. And Swami did offer to initiate him. At that stage, my dad was in the process of finishing his studies, looking for a job and settling us down, and he felt that wasn't the right time. He pushed me forward, and as a result, I benefited. The second proud moment was when I recently discovered that Swami Ganananda visited my home city of Leicester. I spoke on the 25th of August, 1965, at an event organized by the Leicester Yoga Study. The building where he spoke, the cooperative hall on Belgrave Gate, is still standing today. And I do occasionally drive past it and think of him. Amongst the many that have been drawn to the center and helped in spreading the message of Ramakrishna Vedanta was Jonathan Carter, who joined as a novice in the early 1960s. My father opened the door to him, literally, I mean, and he went on to become Swami Tripurananda. Sadly, he's not with us to celebrate the center's 75th anniversary, having passed away almost exactly a year ago, on the 16th of November last year, on the same day as his guru and our founder. Thank you very much. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much for that, there's a lovely cross weaving, and you gave it to us as a great map of the journey of how the center in the UK was formed. If I dare make mention, Tony is common to a lot of our story, and I'm just going to make one anecdotal reference about opening the door. 8th of January, 1988, I had come fresh from the heat of Chennai to the bitter frost in England, and it was cold. I was so nervous. I had a letter from Swami Budeshananda, who might have initiated me, and my eyes were streaming because of the cold. And I misread the name of the Swami that Swami Pratishananda had told me to meet. So I rang the doorbell and Tony's cheerful face appeared and said, "Hello, who have you come to see at the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center?" And I said, "Oh, thank you for opening the door, but at least meet Swami Puriyananda." And he smiled as he's smiling now. It's a great recollection. And he said, "Oh, well, I think you would have to go to Svargaloka for that." I did wipe my eyes. I read that Swami Pratishananda's letter in my hand that means Swami Tripurananda. If Swami Bhavananda is not in. So that was my story to exchange about opening doors. And thank you for taking us from a post-war Britain, a post-independent India, and an age of steamers, and now the age of digitization, when Sri Ramakrishna keeps that bridge of eternity and will keep going. I'd like to now introduce, and there is a lovely link and a bridge from Swami Bhavananda's Moscow moment to our Swami Atmalokananda, who has come from Moscow. Swami Atmalokananda joined the order at Geneva in 1987 at the headquarters, and he was there till 1988. At Barasat Mutt, the birthplace of Swami Shivananda, he was there from January 1988 to 1991, and then at the Probationers Training Center, 1991 to 1993. He was at the Mutt office in Beirut from 2009 to 2011, and as the personal secretary to Most Reverend Vice President Swami Ramakrishna Maharaj. From 2012 January to 2016, he was the manager of Advaita Ashram, Kolkata, and from 2016 to September 2018 as the assistant monk to the then president of the Moscow Center, Swami Jyotirpananda Maharaj, who is now 92. Not Swami Atmalokananda, he's eternally young. From mid-September 2018 to now, Swami Atmalokananda has been carrying out the responsibility as the president of the Ramakrishna Society Vedanta Center, Moscow. I am the to come and address.
Om Avakar Dharmasya Sarvadharma Surubhini Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishna Yati Namaha. Om Janani Saradam Devi Ramakrishna Vedaguru Padapadane Tayasritva Pranamami Muhu. Om Namastri Yati Rajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sugasvarupaya Swami Prabhavaya. My respectful pranams to Srimad Amarananda Maharaj, Sarvasthananda Maharaj, respected Ruth Harris and Patel ji, and Vayu, Dr. Vayu, and respected honorable audience and respected gentlemen and mothers and sisters. So today's topic is Ramakrishna Order, a bridge to eternity. So this is a new bridge, you may say. There were bridges to eternity, different bridges to eternity, different religions, different ways of approaches. So today, Ramakrishna order. So a bridge to eternity, how it could be built. Sri Ramakrishna has shown the path, how a bridge to eternity could be made. So I should start from Swamiji's vision in near Almora, that is macrocosm and microcosm. So Swamiji realized that the microcosm and macrocosm are built on the same principle. So to make a bridge to eternity, it should be started with the microcosm. And Sri Ramakrishna did it. Saradama did it. All the spiritual leaders, all the spiritual athletes of the world did it. So, first Sri Ramakrishna did what? 12 years in Dakshineshwar, never gone outside. And he handed over that wealth, spiritual wealth, to his very eligible disciple, Srimad Swami Vivekananda, and other disciples also. And this is the path that to adjust the microcosm, by adjusting the microcosm, we can make a bridge to eternity. To adjust the macrocosm, to make influence on the macrocosm. That is the whole world, humanity of the world. So without that, nothing can happen. Be and make, Swamiji told. To be. Religion is being and becoming under circumstances, tending to press it down. That is Swamiji's definition of religion. So we must change, we must convert the matter into spirit. We are in tamas, most of the persons, most of the things of the world, the percentage of tamas is more in us. More animal-like, animals are in us. So it is to be converted to become divine, converted into divinity. That energy. Same. Good and evil are not two things. Somebody told that the difference in degree and equal, same in kind. So we have to take recourse to that, changing our own nature, controlling nature, what Swamiji told. The goal is to manifest the divinity within by controlling nature, external internal. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga. And one or more, or combined with all. How to make a triumph for matter? How to awaken our spirit in us? So that is, we can get example from Gita, Bhagavad Gita, how dharma subsides and adharma gets its sway, is raised. There, Shankaracharya pointed out, Dirghena Kalena, Nushthatrina, Kamodbhava, Hiyamana Viveka Vijnana Hetukena, Adharmena, Ovibhuyamana Dharme, Pravardhamana Charam. That is the imbalance is created. By following the dharma for long, long times, So some fatigue comes, some laziness comes, and we are tend to go into the material state, jada, tamas. So you know the incident that every spiritual seeker will have to face. That is, Holy Mother was one day, she used to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And one day she was lying, not getting up. And Sri Ramakrishna was throwing water under the door this way. And Holy Mother could detect the laziness. So from then onwards, she was very careful and alert. This alertness, not to allow tamas to enter in us, always become active. Arjuna faced this problem. Shoka Mahadadhav Nibhavnaya Arjunaya Upadipesha. So he advised, he spoke Gita to Arjuna, who was drowned in Shokama, delusion, attachment, aversion. So the main purpose of Bhagavan Sri Krishna is to awake, to inspire him, and to force him to follow his sadharma, that is to fight the battle. So whole Gita is the story of this, how he made Arjuna to stand up again and to fight. So this is actually the job, the work before us ahead, all the time, to make this microcosm, this body-mind complex. We are engaged in, the spirit is engaged in us, and how to free it and to attain its own pristine glory. And this way, we have to make the bridge to eternity. This order is also trying its best to set this bridge, to build this bridge to eternity by following the dharma, following the eternal religion, following the eternal principle, religious practices in their own life, as well as to emanate, to spread this message to outside the world. What Swami Vivekananda did. First, he realized this knowledge, this Atman, then he preached it. First, to make your flower bloom, the bud to be bloomed, then automatically the bees will come. If there is nothing to bloom, then it will not work. So this way we have to make the bridge. And Sri Ramakrishna ordered Ramakrishna, who was Ramakrishna? Holy Mother pointed out. He was Advaita. While writing a letter to one of the followers of Swami Vivekananda, there was a conflict in Mayavati, whether to install Thakur's image there or not, to start worship there or not. So Holy Mother, in a clear words, she told that our Thakur, our Sri Ramakrishna was Advaita. And I can definitely say that you are the follower of Advaita. What is Advaita? That is Atman. Atman is everywhere, all pervading consciousness. So that is to be realized that we are not confined within our own body and mind, but to see divinity in others, to feel oneness with others. An ocean is there. There are many, multiple, and millions waves. We are also like waves. Some are big waves like Buddha, Christ, Ramakrishna, Krishna. And some are very small, tiny waves. But what is the essence of the wave? It is motion. The reality is ocean. One small wave or a big wave may assert that I am a wave. Individuality can assert, but that is not the truth. There are two ways of seeing the ocean. One from objectively to see the ocean, that I am different from the ocean. I am one of the waves, and this is the ocean, the objective way of seeing the ocean. Another is subjective, I am the ocean. So we have to transform our vision from the objective vision to the subjective vision. Subjective way of viewing the things, viewing the reality. So this is transcending the appearance. So that is to be done. That is Advaita, to see the divinity. Which way? Swamiji gave Karma Yoga, Seva Yoga. That means we have the right to serve others. How to get rid of our limited identity as a limited being, that I am such and such, my name is this, my name is this. Everybody is trying to assert his or her own individuality. But we remain bound. But what is freedom? Freedom to realize that I am present in everybody. Somebody asked Holy Mother, are you the mother of an insect also? Yes, I am the mother. Any unknown person from the different distant places, the devotees, they come to Holy Mother. Holy Mother is embracing them and start working for them, serving them like her own children. We read, nobody is a foreigner, my child, everybody is your own. But in fact, this is what we do. We don't allow others. And even to get an appointment with his own parents to come for lunch. It is not Holy Mother's idea. It is not Advaita. By this way, this fraternity cannot be established. Sacrifice for others. So you have to come out of your own cage, that is limited body-mind complex, as far as one can, gradually, not all on a sudden. So this way, we can establish the bridge to eternity. There are many examples in our scriptures how they could. So these examples to be followed and lives to be studied, how they transcended their personality and they became one with all. You know, the earthquake took place, Swamiji woke up, and somewhere some mishap happened. So Swamiji could not sleep. So this way, Swamiji's heart was so big. That is spirituality. I don't know what is spirituality, but my heart has become unlimited, becoming unlimited. So that is spirituality, what Swamiji understood. So to feel oneness with others. When I was a brahmachari and my brahmacharya ceremony was finished, Swami Swarananda ji, the then General Secretary, he took our classes, special classes. One word he said, one sentence he uttered: feel concern for others. Concern for others. Somebody came, your relative, your own relative. So not to think about others, your own relatives. So whether you are when you are sitting or taking something, eating, by your behavior, others are not disturbed or not. Whether your presence are helping others or not, or disturbing others. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, I am coming to this point, ahimsa. If you take fish, meat, you are not religious. But the real ahimsa, Patanjali says, the state of becoming ahimsa, that the person will not born again, his desire will come. Because his presence is disturbing others. By his presence, others are being affected. That person will not, the urge for liberation will come. If not, he is not a true ahimsa. That should come. So it is very difficult. Though Swamiji ate meat and fishes, but he had the guts to sacrifice his own life also. As Buddha had for a goat. So that simultaneous thinking must be there. So very difficult. Jesus was crucified. So how many of us could be the follower of Jesus Christ? Bleeding for the sake of others. Those who were crucified. So very difficult. Advaita is very difficult. Realization is very difficult. To make a bridge to eternity is very difficult. But to introspect, Sadasat Vichar, what is real, what is unreal, and to know ourselves, to read about the self, who is all pervading. I used to cite the quotation from Gita, that is, Samay Shani Upurami Dhyadhiti Gitaya Atma Sanskam Manakritva Nakinchit Chintaya. I have to bring my mind, Atma Sanskam, to bring my mind to myself, to inner side, to my heart or to myself, and becoming quiet and don't think other things. Atmasakta manakritva nakinchit. This is the practice. Whenever your mind goes outside, engaged in other objects, then bring it inward and put into yourself. That what is the meaning of this self? What is Atma? Atmani eva vasan naye. You bring that mind to yourself. And what is the definition of the self? Shankaracharya is giving Atma eva idam sarvam. Atman is all pervading. As Shandava Upanishad says, Anena jivena atmana anurvishya namadhipe vyakarvani. That God has entered into all beings. Antaryamayati, antaryam. He is in everybody. He is in everybody. So, that transcending the appearance, the individual being, you have to bring your mind, to take your mind and put on that transcendental reality that is all pervading. Atmani eva vasandhaya, that Atma is all pervading. I don't see that myself is all pervading. I am confined within my body. But that is to be, and we have another transcendent nature that is all pervading nature in everybody that is there. Though you are confined, but you are beyond that. So that beyond reality, that is fulfilled by karma yoga. True karma yoga, if a karma yogi does what in a true sense, rightly as Swamiji explained, then we can slowly understand all pervading reality. And then this bridge to eternity to be established, can be framed, and we can embrace the whole world and suffer for the world. Not the Satchit Ananda. Ananda aspect also in suffering. Siva drank the poison. Why? Anandena yatani jivanti. Anandena prayam. For such a bliss, Shiva is drinking the poison. Jesus was crucified. So this is the thing to be contemplated, and we can usher in a new age where everybody will love each other, respect each other, see divinity in everybody, and there will be no competition, no fighting. All the heterogeneous thinking will go away. And true peace will survive. Thank you all. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you so much, Manan, for really taking it on the pinhead of everything starts from that microcosm, which radiates out of the macrocosm. Too much today, we start getting attracted by everything that's out there, and it begins to invade our silence, our larger self. So, such a valuable message, especially where you are coming from, located in Moscow, working with different people, devotees, and to make that distinction between reality and what's unreality. It's a very profound message and work of sacrifice. That
One sentence I forgot to tell about Moscow. Related to this incident, this topic. With oneness. I'm grateful to you to allow again. One incident I'm telling in continuance with this topic, that during the Corona time, all our centers around the world prohibited people to attend to daily services or to Patek Prasad. Guest houses closed, but our center in Moscow opened. And then Secretary Juliana Markova, that time Swami Jyotirpandu was staying. He was 90 years old. She was very much conscious about his health. She is a long-standing devotee for more than 30 years. She is very concerned for Swami Jyotirpananda. When you are allowing people to come in and you are allowing to take prasad, tea and other things, all the centers around the world are closed for the devotees. Why you are allowing? I have a responsibility as a secretary, I should not allow. Then I told, I already discussed this matter with Swami Jyotirpananda. He told that we shall allow, because spiritual conversation cannot be held, intimate spiritual conversation cannot be held through online. It needs personal contact. I told Liliana, see Liliana, if Holy Mother would be there in Russia, in this condition, what she would do? She would close the door or to embrace everybody, or to welcome everybody. She told, you are not Holy Mother. Yes, I Liliana, I am not Holy Mother. But the ideal is always high, like the sun is above, very, very long distance. But slowly we have to follow the ideal and reach to that sun. Though the ideal is high, very distant, but without practicing, how can you reach there? Then he kept quiet. This is a practice. We are the followers of Jesus Christ. We have come to die, not to survive. Die for others. Sudarshan Maharaj, you know, Swami Atmalokananda in Dehradun, an eye hospital he erected. There, during the Corona time, full of Corona patients. And I visited there after the Corona period was over. Then he was telling, I prayed to Thakur that I would die out of Corona, serving the patients. But Thakur didn't allow me to die. So she sincerely prayed. He himself was serving Corona patients. But no effect. I didn't have Corona. This is the spirit which I wanted to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for that memory and giving us a real spirit through an actual incident. I'm very pleased to welcome Professor Ruth Harris, who once again I have to actually thank Swami Vivekananda for, and Swami Sarvasthananda for the introduction. And this is an embarrassing moment because I think we have become friends. And I would love to introduce her now. She is a tremendous scholar with many accolades. I had to abbreviate and edit so that she has more time to speak rather than me speaking about her. So I will say this about Professor Patel. She is the author of Ruth and The Man on Devil's Island, which won the Wolfson Prize and the National Jewish Book Award. Guru to the World, The Life and Legacy of Vivekananda was published in 2022 by Harvard University Press. And of it is there, she offered an arresting biography showing how Vivekananda's thought spawned a global anti-colonial movement and became a touchstone of contemporary nationalist politics a century after his death. The iconic monk emerges as a counter-argument to Orientalist critiques, which interpret East-West interaction as primary instances of following. As Vivekananda demonstrates, we must not underestimate Eastern agency in the global circulation of ideas. I would like to add that her industrious and compelling work lays bare the landscape of challenges in a time of revolution and empire and materialism. In this context, Narendra Datta emerges as student with the paradox of aristocracy by birth and the choice and free will of the aesthetics life, constantly challenging complacency, storing ideas in drawing rooms and assembly halls of kings, clergy, the parliament of religion, and leading the life that mobilized a movement of the science of human potential. It is he who brings in theory and praxis, which she shows us from her book, that is drawn from the inspiration of his master, Sri Ramakrishna, who built this bridge to eternity by practicing the disciplines of selected spiritual discipline and asserting the uniqueness of each flowing with the current of the universal in the multiverse. That's my tribute to you. Please welcome Ruth.
I'd like to thank you all for this welcome into your community. It's very rare for a scholar to have access to people who are devotees, especially since I'm not a devotee. I have to be honest, but I cannot deny that reading about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda has certainly changed my life. And it had to, because I came from a very different world and I had to learn so much. And also I had to recognize what I could not learn because it was not my world. But today I want to talk to you about Vivekananda and try to think about how this Indian Swami became what I call a global guru. And I want to understand better why his teaching was conveyed so differently to different audiences, and how he began to shape a vision of the Ramakrishna mission for both India and the world. And it might be particularly important today because the world is on fire, and religious differences often underpin these conflicts. And the way he speaks about Advaita as God in everyone, it seems to me in many ways that we have forgotten this. Often too, Vivekananda is heralded, especially in India, for his philosophical and theological elaboration of Advaita. For he both remained within tradition and changed that tradition. And in my book, I never use the word Vedanta. I use Vedanta. Now, of course, his work on Advaita can be separated from his work as a guru. But I want to concentrate today on the second aspect, on his desire to communicate, and above all, to listen and observe in trying to translate Vedanta to new publics, especially in the West. And of course, his instruction was rooted in the guru tradition that tailored spiritual instruction to the needs and capacities of each individual. I'm going to talk mostly about Western adherence. This is how Mary Punky, her name is very punky, I think. One of his disciples remembered explaining, quote, "The guru is like a crystal. He reflects perfectly the consciousness of all who come to him. He thus understands how and in what way to help. He means by this that a guru must be able to see what each person needs, and he must meet them on their own plane of consciousness." And what I find so interesting so far about these discussions is that you're not just talking about abstraction. The personal anecdotes are, in a sense, a form of prayer. They are related to individuals and to people. And that is what is one of the key things that Vivekananda as a guru brought to the West. I also argue that he applied this technique to larger audience. He had to be different in different places because he understood that truth had a relative dimension that had to account not only for the personal differences, but for cultural variation. And he took seriously Ramakrishna's view that to be effective, you have to speak in the language of the people who are listening to you. To understand this vision better, we must turn, of course, to Rita and to Sarvasthananda's divine play. And I think, again, you know, these are suffused with simple metaphors. Cooking metaphors are particularly important. They describe mothers, and particularly Sharada Devi, who created dishes for her various disciples, so that they suited the physiological needs of each person. So there's a transfer of this metaphor of the physiology and from Ayurvedic teaching to the idea of different spiritual temperaments and how they injected God, literally took God in, as well as unveiling God as they understood the self. And this metaphor opened up the belief that universalism was based as much on difference as it was on unity. As you described in your analysis of the wave and the ocean. Both Ramakrishna and Sharada Devi thus suggested that universalism did not just accommodate difference, but also was difference. And he underscored the paradox of his thinking with the way he taught different individuals. I cannot reiterate enough how his method was interactive. We go back to the statement about spiritual teaching being personal, human. At times it was even improvisational, as he worked very much on the hook, adjusting and tailoring his ideas to different audiences. And he was a master of the unexpected, constantly challenging his hearers to think outside of the custom patterns of thought. And I cannot emphasize this enough. He was a spiritual democrat. This goes back to the discussion of privilege at the beginning. Doesn't matter where you are, where you come from the social hierarchy, from you, everyone had the right to learn Sanskrit, even the poor and women. By traveling west, he also sought a global public for Hindu ideas, intending to spread the message of Vedanta. When he argued that India was the mother of spirituality, he claimed that India had a special capacity for religious invention, while simultaneously providing proof of India's ability to foster coexistence and refuge. But what I want to explain to you, and perhaps you don't know enough of it, is that it wasn't an easy task. He came to the World Parliament of Religions in 1893, and he had to challenge negative prejudices and stereotypes all the time. You know, we all know the famous costume of the saffron turban and orange robe. That was still important because he was neither a wandering sadhu or a Western Christian minister in somber black and white color. He invented it and facilitated his address to this new world while retaining the spiritual demeanor so important in his description of Indian religion as both ancient, but also now changing and modern. During his early addresses at the Parliament, he contrasted what he saw as Western fanaticism with a different vision of religion. He said, "We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions to be true," a lesson that he had learned from his own guru, Ramakrishna. And in deliberate contrast to Christian missionaries, he sought no convert. And this was particularly difficult for Westerners to understand. He has the famous line, "I want to make the Methodist a better Methodist, the Presbyterian a better Presbyterian, the Unitarian a better Unitarian." And from the very beginning, he set the diversity as integral to India and Hinduism and contrasted it with what he called, quote, sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant, fanaticism. Alas, he associated that not with Christianity, but with institutionalized Christianity. And I think, again, it's so hard to imagine because the people cheered. He was criticizing them and they cheered. So why would they cheer? What I want to suggest is that he tapped into a vein of self-criticism, doubt, and vulnerability within his Western hearers. A young philosopher present recalled later how, quote, there was a gasp running through the hall when Vivekananda contradicted the doctrine of original sin. Instead, he said, it's a sin to call a man so. It is a standing libel on human nature. They loved it. Here was a man who was the exotic foreigner who said to them, you don't have to feel sinful all the time. You can realize yourself. But at the same time, that there was all this commotion around him, and his charisma was evident, he was caught up in an American world where people sought miracles and occult displays. And he was irked when audiences assumed whether the yogi would be able to perform magical tricks. They wanted him literally to walk on nails or to levitate. And of course, somebody like Swami Vivekananda was horrified by these suggestions. And even though he seemed to possess, he possessed yogic powers, he rarely, very rarely displayed them. And in Raja Yoga, the great book of 1896, he concentrated on mental states and spiritual illumination rather than on getting powers. And he refused to speak about the miracles, about the miraculous. He also spoke repeatedly about science and religion, and it was an important way to dismiss missionary accounts of Hinduism as heathenish. And at the same time, he couldn't help but occasionally answer back and say, Orthodox Christians, and there were many who criticized him, he accused them of superstition because of their literal belief in the Bible. And if you read carefully his remarks, this explains why he talks about evolution, Pasteur, embryology, and he even speculated in neurophysiology. He had a unique capacity to communicate the connections between science and religion, but he saw them as operating on two different levels rather than in opposition to one another. He wrote, it seems to us that the conclusions of modern science are the very conclusions that Vedanta reached ages ago. But in modern science, they are written in the language of matter. And of course, he was interested in a different language. And but he wasn't enthralled by science. He saw what was bad in it. He rejected the competition of natural selection, especially for the higher reaches of human morality. He rejected social Darwinism and believed that the, quote, survival of the fittest furnished every oppressor with an argument to calm the qualms of conscience. And many of you may not know, but he condemned his Western audience for their cruelty. He wrote, wherever you have found weaker races, you've exterminated them by the roots. What is the history of your America, your Australia and New Zealand, your Pacific Islands in South Africa? Where are those Aboriginal races there today? They're all exterminated. You have killed them outright, as if they were wild beasts. Now, all these examples suggest how he both engaged in the debates in this new context, but was not afraid to scold Westerners for what he saw as their excesses. But, as you know, he could be just as harsh in dealing with his Indian compatriots. This was how he fashioned himself as a guru to the world, both by engaging with faults, but also by trying to make people feel great. And I will show you how he did that in America. Now, he was a remarkable guru in my mind because he was taught by a remarkable guru, Ramakrishna. As you know, much better than me, Ramakrishna refused the title of father or teacher and remained determinedly childlike, sometimes also maternal. He apparently said, and this is a quotation from the Capitalita, there are three words that trick me: guru, doer, and father. I love it. And of course, he was all three of those things, but he said he wasn't. I do not need to tell you about his spirituality in childhood, about the importance of surrender and the emphasis on understanding and experiencing the different paths in the divine, which he saw as the basis of true God understanding. But he was savvy in picking someone who, at least superficially, was very much not. Vivekananda was semi-literate. Ramakrishna was semi-literate, but as you know, Vivekananda knew about imperial and European intellectual trends and was as invested in Hindu sacred texts. He also had a refined interest in English poetry and a serious engagement with the Christian Bible. He said remarkable things about Jesus Christ. But I learned deeper down there were commonalities that soldered their bonds. Ramakrishna was a bhakti, but famous for his untutored but brilliant observations on religious doctrine and religious thought. Vivekananda seemed subconsciously intellectual, but admitted that he was easily wounded and was passionate about God devotion. Although he called himself, quote, a severe Advaitist and preached the unity of the Atman and Brahman, he also literally admitted a devotion to the Divine Mother when he said, Kali worship is my special fad. You never heard me preach it or read of my preaching it in India. I keep it a secret, and there it ends. And for all his intellectuality and his admiration for the metaphysical heights that Advaita encouraged, he admitted in a speech to fellow Indians in Madras in 1897, I'm using the 19th century names of the vicinity, quote, it has become a trite saying that idolatry is all wrong. I once thought so, and to pay the penalty of that, I had to learn my lesson, sitting at the feet of a man who realized everything through idols. I allude to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So what kind of guru was Ramakrishna with Vivekananda? Most healthily, he allowed Vivekananda freedom to explore, argue, and play, with his guru responding in turn with gentleness, humor, and scolding, depending on the situation. He was also the only disciple amongst the early group who was instructed in Vedanta. The Guru brothers talk movingly about how they each enjoyed a unique relationship to Ramakrishna, some learning flexibility, others accepting greater discipline, each according to his own spiritual inclinations. Vivekananda said he was remarkable. He wrote, we saw how often Sri Ramakrishna would encourage people who we thought were worthless and change the whole course of their lives. His method of teaching was phenomenal. I think this was a true inspiration for Vivekananda. Indeed, Ramakrishna had provided Vivekananda with an object lesson in spiritual democracy. Unlike his guru, Vivekananda was no Brahmin, but a young man of Vyasa origin. And indeed, his qualifications for spiritual leadership were regularly criticized because of his origin when he returned to India. Now, in the West, his relationship to his followers was very different again. I think many of you have read Sister Christine's reminiscences. I'm going to give you one example. She was a Lutheran stock from a little community in a little village near Nuremberg. Now, how did such a woman become entranced with Vedanta? This is an important question. If you read her remarks carefully, you'll see that she was above all attracted to Vivekananda's critique of Western notions of duty. He wrote, this idea of duty is the midday summer sun, which scorches the innermost soul of mankind. Look at those poor slaves to duty. Duty leaves them no time to say prayers, no time to bathe. Duty is ever on them. They go out and work. Duty is on them. They come home and think of the work for the next day. Duty is on them. It's living a slave's life, at last dropping down in the street and dying in harness like a horse. Like Ramakrishna before him, who was fearful of the fate of his disciples when they became clerks and he thought slaves to the British, Vivekananda took pity on Westerners for their preoccupation with repetitive toil. Instead of duty, Vivekananda encouraged Christine to unfetter the soul and to become free. As the eldest daughter of a large English family, these possibilities were tantalizing. And if you read the correspondence between them, he's constantly telling her to realize herself, to believe in herself. At Thousand Island, Christine believes she first learned how to give duty. She said, it's not difficult if one's devotion to the Guru was great enough, but then, like the snake, one dropped the old and put on the new. She explored, as did Sister Vedanta, the relationship between surrender, how to submit to the Guru's authority, and self-sovereignty, self-realization that the Guru-disciple relationship implied. And Vivekananda understood the difficulties of submitting to this lifelong relationship. He was so honest. He said, there's the dangers of personal love that blocks spiritual transformation, that if you were too concerned with personality, it could become even idolatry. And he said, adore your Guru if there be real truth in him. The Guru Bhakti will quickly lead you to the heights. And yet, he also acknowledged that it was not quick. You had to find somebody, a Guru who had real truth in him. This was not easy. He acknowledged it as well. To do this, he understood also the need to create different Vedantic contexts by judging what different cultures would absorb or reject. And we heard something about that when we talked about Moscow. One of his Indian acquaintances from the past explained, quote, he spoke of Sri Ramakrishna apparently mad. If he spoke of Ramakrishna's apparently mad actions undertaken with a view to killing himself and him, he would have been thrown in a ditch. So this was not the way to appeal to Protestant America. And I want you to really try to imagine what it's like to operate in a context where there are no gurus, that they have no idea what a guru might be. And that is the hardest thing to do. And yet Christine was able in retrospect to understand and probe what he tried to do. She explained how he deliberately attacked foibles, prejudices, false values. He destroyed naivety and enthusiasms. He forced the disciples to understand that, quote, both good and evil are in Maya. That's the importance of that contradiction that he was so important to his revising of a vision of Maya as more than the illusion, and that freedom comes with liberation from both. This was the hardest thing for Westerners to get. They thought it could be separate, good and evil. And he said, no, worship the terrible, even as you now worship the good, then get beyond both. Vivekananda tried to make them experience this paradox of contradiction during day-to-day lessons. Christine recounted how he hammered, that's her word, some disciples with the severest asceticism with regard to diet habits, even clothing and conversation. With others who were too intent on self-denial, which he thought was a kind of vanity, he said, good had become a bondage. And he advocated greater expansiveness, more laughter, more play. Being good is not enough for Vivekananda. He continually insisted that they stand on their own 2 feet. Here again was the paradox. How could they know their own views if he was always criticizing and directing? And yet Christine realized that he had a mode of questioning. She writes, a yes, that urged the devotee to go off and think again. Only at the 3rd time might he, quote, point out the error. He let his devotees choose, saying simply, it's not for you. In this way, there was no dogma, only the trust that underlay the bond between guru and disciple, which permitted the mutual exploration of the spiritual possibilities. And if he was trying to tailor himself to all these different people in a very different culture, he also was seen differently by different Western devotees. He was called a spiritual father. He was called a mother of patience and gentleness. He was called the guardian of the threshold. it was, everyone had a different view. All I can say is how very different this must have been from engaging with a Protestant pastor and with a child of Christianity that had focused on sin and penance and transgression. Do I have 5 minutes? Do I have 5 more minutes? Yeah, okay. So it's a large, now how do we do it with large audiences? He understood that in the West, he had to preach against materialism, violence, and fanaticism, and to increase their mental, spiritual, and physical flexibility in yoga. He saw them as very rigid, both spiritually and physically. Against the busyness of Western industry and punctuality, he asserted the primacy of meditation and timelessness, and explained that processes of concentration were not ends but means. He told them not to think about faith, but to focus on themselves, on realization, not on imprisoning ideas of Christian duty. And he did not speak miraculous truth. And in that way, he opposed the Christian scientists who were very much engaged in trying to cure people. Instead, he applied his techniques that were all about perseverance. But when he was in India, he wanted something different. He wanted to end timidity, to shift attitudes of subservience and fear, and above all, to resist needless imitation. So when young and traveling across India, he took 2 books, the Gita and Thomas A. Kempis' Imitation of Christ. Now, the second is a 15th century text that guided Christian aspirants to withdraw from the world in search of spiritual growth. And he loved this book because it both guided the British missionaries, but showed a path to devotion that he thought was as good as anything that he had read in Hinduism. But later, he became more ambivalent about, quote, imitation, because he did not want the Indians to become like the British. And as a guru and as a human being, he labored to understand how one changed while remaining oneself. Now, this is an existential concern to which we all know. Such issues were personal, but also profoundly cultural and political. How did a people or a nation alter itself or find new sources of strength without surrendering its values and identity? And because of his travels, he understood this more than anyone else. And he worried as early as 1894 whether the Indian masses would become occidental in energy and activism while retaining their religions and spiritual concerns. I suggested that he taught meditation to urge Westerners away from busyness, distraction, and hardness. When he returned to India, he did different things. There are wonderful accounts about how he constrained the spiritual spontaneity of his guru brothers, and how one of them in particular, Latu, found it very, very difficult. There were novices with new routines, regulations, and disciplines. The monks transformed themselves as they became advocates of seva and distributed food during the famine after 1897. And they engaged increasingly in welfare and educational activism. He showed his dedication to this practical approach, even in small initiatives. For example, he instituted something called the Delsart method in Bellarmine, a system of breath control and expression exercises pioneered by the French singing and acting coach, Francois Delport. Now, what's so interesting about this is that he made fun of this in the West. He mocked this method and instead advocated a control of the pranayama. But in India, he even joined these exercises amongst the monks to dumbbell training to deepen physical resilience so that his followers might be physically strong when they worked among the poor. And this is fascinating because this little example shows Vivekananda's willingness to engage with people of different creeds around the world, but also to value their contributions, even if they were foreign. Mostly, he wanted to bring people from both, quote, East and West to the middle, but his emphasis on embracing new ideas and spiritual techniques did not mean that he advocated imitation, and certainly not homogenization. It was the emphasis on retaining one's individuality. He attempted always to balance tendencies within individuals and in larger societies. And though he scolded everywhere, I mean, he's famous for his scolding, which, by the way, the Westerners couldn't take. They couldn't be scolded. He also encouraged and above all listened, seeking to understand. Now, for me, this is one of the essential lessons of his thought, especially for worlds on fire. It's so hard to keep on listening as people double down into positions of extremes. For me, this is one of the great messages of Ramakrishna Vedanta, is that you have to adjust one's thought and practice. You have to accept faults, but you also have to work with them. And that is what I think is an important eternal lesson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for giving us Swami Vivekananda, the man, and this amazing vehicle of language that he transformed to be able to root and uproot assumptions into truth, and be absolutely like a guillotine about it. So I really thank you for unwrapping and unraveling the man who had love in his heart and a very sharp razor intellect by which he used language across so many contexts to bring forth Advaita as he lived it. Thank you so much. Really, really. Another round of applause. Do not be afraid. We are very much keeping time on to Swami Sarvasthananda. This is a time of calm, contemplation. The dark has come upon us, but we are in the light. So it gives me honor and privilege to introduce Swami Amarananda, who has come from France. Geneva. So sorry, I should be very clear about this. I beg your pardon. I just put a note here, Switzerland, and then I said France. It's allowed. Thank you. We're talking about oneness in the world, but we have to stick to that. Climbing onto that trench. Swami Amarananda was born in Singapore, in British India. He graduated in civil engineering in Kolkata in 1964, and soon came in touch with the spiritual master Swami Atmalokananda. He joined the order of Ramakrishna in 1966. He was designated to supervise the restoration of the building where Swami Vivekananda lived and passed away in Beirut, and participated 4 times in relief operations after disasters that happened in India. Thereafter, he was headmaster of a residential school for more than 9 years. Later, he assisted in management of a home meant for providing food and lodging to poor students at the University of Calcutta. He was nominated as Assistant Minister Swami Vedanta of France in September 1986. Since 25th January 1989, he is the director of Swami Vedanta of Geneva. And his interfaith participations are on the Committee of World-Based Development Dialogue from 1998 to 2000, and of Interreligious Platform Geneva since its inception in 1992. He has participated in peace meetings under the auspices of the community of San Egidio, represented the order of Ramakrishna during the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Parliaments of World's Religion. He gives annual talks in WCP campus at Hostel on specific issues related to Hinduism. His authorship includes stories from Vedanta, views from the Vedantic wisdom, drama texts for use by children. He has co-authored biography The Ramakrishna, which is a translation adapted from the famous biography composed by Swami Sarvasthananda, who was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. I welcome you to speak from here, or would you like to speak from there?
मेरे को बोल
Yeah.
Professor Harish and Mr. Patel. Page. You see, 75 years ago, when this center was established in England. England was in a post-war situation. Its foreign reserves had dwindled. Industries were sick, most industries, and infrastructures like railway needed urgent repairs. Britain was really bankrupt. Added to that, there was a shortage of food, especially in London. In 1949, India's Prime Minister visited UK. And Lady Mountbatten was able to see the Prime Minister. And she showed a telescribing note into the pocket of Mr. Makai, Naidu's personal secretary, saying that when you go to look at the site, this very happy wakes for me. That was the situation. See? So when such a situation comes, the morale of the people goes down. And Vedanta was needed to make it. Because Vedanta, after all, in any situation, gives hope, courage, and also and we look forward. So in this point, Vivekananda was in New York in 1895. Economic condition was very bad. So many people say had lost their money, their investments, they used to come to Swamiji's lecture and used to go back with hope and courage. So the same thing happened in India when India was, you see, in 19th century India. It was really in turmoil, find a way. Some people were tremendously conservative. Some people were for throwing away everything which was ancient and heritage. And some others were, you see, trying to strike a middle way. But nobody had actually thought about going to the roots, because India's power, vitality is in religion. So to you remember, especially it started with the Brahmo Samaj movement in Calcutta, and gradually this movement became tremendously anti-Hindu. They are saying that all Hindus are doing wrong. Everything is superstition. There is no hope unless you discard this religion. So, and especially they were starting idolatry. And of course, along with that, other things, for example, this Dr. etc. Ramakrishna came and proved at that time the utility of so-called idolatry. Of course, you don't say that the only path is to accept the path of the Buddhistas, but he is to tell the Brahma Samaj leaders that you are not Brahmagyanis. We are doing all the things of the world and simply uttering Aham Brahmasmi, we do not become Vedantists. We are basically bhaktas. So, and he showed in his own life that how to go to the Vedanta sect, because he practiced the ancient Vedantic practice. He was 6 months in Samadhi. So then he came back. He had the divine command. So he said, God's word, keep Bhavmukhe. Bhavmukhe is also a word according by God. Bhavmukhe, that means your mukha is that is the most prominent thing that is in spiritual movement, which means remaining between the two, the Nitya and the Lila. It's Nitya, which the Orthodox Vedanta talks about, and Lila, which the Bhaktas talk about. The remaining between the two. So he remained that which wow. Anyhow, so we are talking about retaining those days. And in 1948, as we have been told, precisely on 18th November, the Vedanta Center was inaugurated. So this is the point to me that this is, in any situation, especially bad situation, it gives you hope and courage. Because Vedanta is finally talking about fearlessness, talking about unity, and talking about determined things. These determined is a very good thing. So we have said. So that is the scenario. We preach the Vedanta Center came 53 years ago in Havana, while Vivekananda was started in England. And in one of the chance meetings, it was an informal meeting, in drawing room of an aristocratic family. Vivekananda sat on the floor and was talking to some people. And one of the persons who put questions to Swami Vivekananda was India's ex-first lady, Lady Ripon. And Miss Margaret Nobel was also there. For several years, and also was being tortured by the fact that from her childhood she believed in Christ and in Christianity. When she grew up and began to study natural sciences, he could not make the doctrines match with science. So that introduced doubt in her soul about the truth of Christianity. And this was her, trouble. She was so much devoted to Christianity that at one time she was thinking of becoming a nun. But then this thing was in her heart. So that day she also put many questions. And in half our time, we can answer to all those questions with satisfaction. That was the thing which attracted him to the path. That this teacher should not be neglected because he has been able to tackle all these questions in a masterly fashion. The husband who was an instance about it, and talking about whether it mother-in-law became Nivedita. She became a disciple of Swami Vivekananda and became known as Nivedita. Swami Vivekananda gave this name. And she plays a big role in India's history. The struggle for freedom, in the revival of art and culture, in Bengal, so, and there are other things. She was secretary to the great scientist, Mr. Atul, and also instrumental in saving your window boot, guiding it, because she who brought the money from Jagadish the Ghosh, 800 rupees in those days, handed over to the Ghosh, asked him, do you need to have Patel? Go to Chandanara and by the first available boat, go to Panichi. Escape arrest from the British again. So, Mr. Vedanta was a product from here. Of course, she was not the only one. Britain gave Vivekananda 3 other projects, supporters. One is goodwill. Much of the literature we came to of Vivekananda is due to his labor, goodwill's labor. Then the saviors, Captain Savior and Mrs. Savior, probably not a big so these 3 other souls he got from. And he himself said that it is such an excellent that if you put some idea into them, they will want it. He gave a compliment to the British society in that way. Now, Vedanta was reminiscing about this meeting with Swami Vivekananda in London. Suppose he had not come to London that time. Life would have been a headless dream, for I always think that I was waiting for something. I always think that God would come, and it did. But if I had known good of life, I doubt that when the time came, I should certainly have recognized it. Fortunately, I knew it and was spared the torture. All the time I had this burning voice within, but nothing to utter. Quite often and often, I sat down, paid hand to speak, and there was no speech. And now there is no end to it. As surely I am fitted to my word, so surely is my calling in need of me. Waiting, ready. There was a sun placed in the hall. But if he had not come, if he had meditated the Hinolympics, I would had never been here. It's talking about. This meeting was important historically because the patient would be served to become considered the one of the Occidental those who play an important role in the history of India. It will visit his way in Virginia. And it is written, I think it is just devotion. The idea putting it this way. Here lies the soul, the brain, really much do. Now, Vivekananda taught mainly Vedanta, though he taught other yogas also. But if you look at the complete works of Vivekananda, you will find that whenever Vedanta comes, there is a special something That means Vedanta was in his soul, as Ramakrishna said, that he belongs in the class of yogis, Akandaya, in the language of Ramakrishna. Akandaya, the chamber of the Hinduism, that means your one Brahma. That means he was his previous incarnation was also fading through this life. Now, what is the meaning of your theme of Vedanta, especially to the West? Of course, it is also to the East, also to the same thing. We are most of the time preoccupied with the manifold. Vedanta talks about one, the manifold. Manifold multiplicity is a new thing. Because Vedanta, you can say, like Buddha, Vedanta also treats this world as an illusion, and they are proving it, that is the illusion. If you read Mandukya, Karika especially, the same, you see how they are establishing it, that the world is really an illusion. World is like a dream, or say, compared to we do not understand it now. We take the words, say, when you are at another dream, then it will seem like a dream. When you're in the waiting stage, then you understand that dream is just false. Similarly, when you go to the higher stage, then you understand that our waking experience is also false. There is non-eternal things, transitory things, changeful things. This change, this world, whether you call it illusion or you call it a manifestation of the world, the relating. In a manifestation, they are not the ultimate truth. Ultimate truth is that one. When you know one, say the K, for example, the Upanishad says, they know all the qualities which are made today. That way, when you know the one, you know everything in the one. That is the one thing. Another thing is that coming to say to the human level, man considers himself as the body, mind, and intellect. Normally, we do not think about other things, but all these things are the outer shell. The real essence is your Atman. That also, philosophers like Guru Pada and Shankara have established positively. The essence is the Atman. So to start on in this speech, or its illustration, the mind is going to do its meditation, and the sense organs, their respective activities regarding perception of the universe outside and inside. Now, this, you see, idea, if you do not study well, it will seem to be a speculative paradigm, an unusual thought, because everywhere we are seeing manifold, many things. And to assert that the illusion and the one is the only truth, ultimate truth, it normally the human mind cannot accept it. Not only not it, even 2 hours doubted it in the country of its origin. So 2 centuries after Shankara, first voice which tried to modify this was that of Ramakrishna, who said that there is some variation in spite of the global unity. That is how we put it. And 5 centuries after Shankara came another philosopher who said that there is always difference between living beings, among living beings, among living beings, universe, and God. And also there is this variation is spiritual. It will always depend. So, and Buddhi, your Madhva, Madhva's disciple of Vyasadeva wrote a book where he criticized with arguments the non-dualism. 6 centuries later, Madhusudana line by line gave me a rebuttal of this, what Vyasadeva wrote. So again, you see, this non-dualism came before, even throughout. Then we are in the 19th century, and see, Swami Vivekananda, the disciple of Ramakrishna, who first doubted about this truth, but ultimately was converted to this truth. He experienced it and then applied it to his vision. So that is the history of evolution in short of Vedanta. You see, Vedanta asserted itself to say, in this century, not only Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, but also we had the emergence of Ramakrishna, who, let's see, in a Geneva fashion, he was asserting this oneness. Now, if you admit this Vedanta, then there are very big corollaries from it. One is man is potentially divine, he is not naturally man. He is potentially divine. Man's faults are repeated and is never able to bondage. Man has the set essential because he is not the body. There is not a higher lower to the other because all spirit, all Atman. No religion should be looked upon because all religions are but different attempts by mankind to grasp the same extraterritorial truth to different means. Now there are texts, so there will be formed, etc., etc. But even that fault you can make progress to religion, to take because in the wisdom of all religions, characteristics arose. They did not go by doctrines. That's it. They dive into mysticism and you find a convergence across religions. Now, all will not change if all men and women get converted to a particular religion. It will do almost the same, but all will be revolutionized if 100% truly become convinced about the Vedantic truth. It will bring a tremendous force. Now, coming from the heights of this non-dualism to devotional practices, for Gauravada and Shankara, these practices are subsidiary for achieving purity and concentration. But both Ramananda and Buddha gave primary importance to such practices. Ramakrishna is also to believe that through devotion, of course, the pure type of devotion is to say Ahimsa Bhakti. That means devotion not prompted by any desire, and he is to use also Amarananda Bhakti. That is devotion with tremendous affection towards God. To that kind of bhakti, you can reach the highest spiritual level. That is, it is an independent path. That's it. And going to that independent path, he said that, he also said that there is something beyond that. Say, going to that, you can easily switch over to the Advaita, non-dualism, and you can fly between these two. Nitya Vilah, he said. The highest yogi can do it, but only it is not possible for ordinary persons. Very high kind of yogi. We find this going Modusha of such is right. Dvaita Moha, Moha, Prapte Bodhi, Manishaya, Bhaktartam Kalputat Dvaita Bhaktidat Visuddhara. That all yes, devotional practices, there is some illusion in it. Because there is a basic falsehood that you are worshipping something else, because ultimately we are wrong. So that's there. But when you achieve this unity, this oneness, that's it. Bhakti will be the greater. You see, for the sake of bhakti, you are imagining the duality, then it is sweeter than Vedanta. You see. But Vedanta which will now, how to proceed? Atmalokananda gave a detailed explanation. Karma is something that Gita is a great tool in activity with the core. The other idea of Karma, that means under all circumstances, maintain equality. That propels you to the platform that is set. There is a great discipline under all circumstances, maintaining equality is not easy. The techniques are popular. We help you in having higher and higher concentration. What is wrong with Patel is that we find a vision. The data, that is in the answer accepted. This particular issue is saying, this gravity, it doesn't accept reality. So the techniques of cognitive class sign yoga may serve as subsidiary ways to prepare a part. Before you are, you can speak with non-dualism. When you teach to drive the message, the reality is unique, undefinable, unmanifested, transcendent, and all pervading. Western philosophers do not talk about this truth and new accepting insight. With the end of your Manyoga, there is this line, the Buddha has taught us many noble truths, but that everything is Brahma, everything is non-dual Brahma. This has not been uttered by Buddha. No Buddha has lost them. Ramakrishna
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for encapsulating the evolution of Vedanta and giving us both what was happening in India with the thinkers and the practice, and how Swami Vivekananda brought it into an industrial and modern world, which is why it continues to have significance even today. Enormous thanks, and thank you for giving us the energy of that time. Thank you. It's a privilege, as that was the opening of the talk, to now invite our host from Sarvasthananda, and I've spoken a bit about them, but here I'll give you too humble, so later we just correct that a bit. He is, as you all know, the step charge at Ramakrishna Vedanta Center, which is a permanent partnership. He's also the editor of the Amarananda Vedanta, which is published from here. After he graduated in mechanical engineering, he joined Ramakrishna Order at his headquarters at Geneva in February 1987. Since June 27, he served Sri Ramakrishna Ashram in Rajkot in India in various capacities for more than 30 years. He served in the Central Publication Department, which has published more than 200 books of Gujarati language for nearly 25 years, and was the editor of the Gujarati monthly Sri Ramakrishna Vedanta for nearly 70 years. He toured extensively preaching in the American language of Ramakrishna Vedanta in his country of the Virgin Islands and Ramakrishna extensively on the world. I can say personally from his time coming here, he really induced, invented, made it possible through Zoom and other digital media. But he also traveled extensively to Scotland, to North England, and to other parts before he was able to go to Europe. So he's recognized Ramakrishna mission that he must focus on youth and their social impact and beyond Southeast Asia, and he's also recommended the organization that will be led to Tunisia and Paris in 2018. The three official university representatives of Ramakrishna mission to the UNESCO events were that in different countries of the world. He has also represented India in the three-day international peace conference in Rome from 23rd to 25th October 2022, presided over by Pope Francis and President Emmanuel Macron of France and President Sergio Mattarella of Italy as chief guest. Maharaj, please come and give us your.
Amarananda ji, dear Atmalokananda ji, Ruth, Dr.Vayu, and all the other devotees who have gathered together for a very momentous occasion, 75 years of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center in the UK. So the topic can go directly to the topic, because we are already running short of time. So I will ask to define what civilization is. That takes us the bridge to eternity, which Ramakrishna established. I also practice Swami Vivekananda said that civilization is nothing but a progressive leading of spirit into matter. So very simple explanation of civilization. So what we want to do is, for to call which Ramakrishna did, and the Ramakrishna order, which comprise from the direct disciple of Sri Sarvasthananda, who got from Christian, and successful tradition that has come living, and also the devotee, the devotees who which help by the help where you can come a small stone, like the square and when you put it there to learn. So this is basically it's a which is based on very strong foundation of spiritual growth. Not made of material. When it comes to the which he has prepared the blueprint But it's not like you need the architect who prepares a blueprint and something else comes there. In and through the he's still doing. That's the difference. This bridge is totally different. You have the architect, the one who prepares the blueprint, one who constructs, and he gets everything done. Make a blueprint happens, we add differently. But as Swami Vivekananda said, it's only the progressive building of spirit into matter, which is not so long with that contributing the living spirit. And it's our privilege is to choose this as instruments to bring in it. Because this is a bridge, which will become probably the earth. But all those barriers, just like we are doing some from by Atmalokananda explain and coming to those details, people explain that it's a bridge has to lead everyone. And Swami Vivekananda said, I find it easy to work with the garden. But I was continuing to work and expecting everywhere that they are one before. So instead of in as Swami Vivekananda said, it's my roots. Anybody who sort of anything, small contribution that we make, we may not be able to manifest the spirit that we take. But our second and it will be a blessing for us, not the one the disciples being with the spirit. It's all the fire is very close. So, this particular 75 is not a short time. So, Swami this movement has to continue. And with regard to the persons and they will consider themselves as individuals. So, 75 is wonderful. Introduction to Patel, and very difficult circumstances. With the single when you find the impact Swami Ananda came there. And it was the power of the spirit, the power of Ramakrishna that was acting through me. And I thought that I was doing this. That is how the spirit. Maybe we make our own contributions. We will need that. The spirit behind this Ramakrishna. Because this is the because we cannot do it by the materials. It has to be, it has to have some eternal content to it. So whatever we need, whatever we do, whatever we try to accomplish, activities, not activities. This central point has to be remembered. How to manage the spirit and this of materialism, as I said, progressing way of spirit into matter. When we talk about civilization, we only think of civilizations as conquest, as communication, that's what something translated. It is but I think that is not good. That in fact, beginning of language. There cannot be there is so it's the one spirit, the one same nonsense, the one so it's the idea and on this moment of profession and also very much thankful to having for the wonderful excellence and east and west. That is to inspire not only India but also inspire some disciples of the West and one has said, system of Israel and modern state is a failure couple. But they also just imagine that entire property in London, the same planetary, decided to build a whole ashram, which is 100 acres in size. See, I think was very values. Mr. The mother of mine, and we cannot get it. System everything from the north of India. So that is creating the west and the east. The east created, as Ruth pointed out, very clearly pointed out, so many particular better. But for India and India, we have to come to the west. That's the point of the India. As this interaction, this big building in the process, it is because that was Ramakrishna Vedanta, and that is the divine belief that leads to eternity through whichever path. There are so many paths as described by Swami Amarananda and also Atmalokananda, how to the concept of the values of God is done. And you can also do that. We can build this bridge to eternity. So I want to thank you for here and participated in this very important event. We have a nice retreat where we hear more from the technologies. We have much more time there. This is very small here already. Short of time. So once again, thank all of you. We have official with the economists who are from Atmalokananda, from Hostel, from Amarananda. Is so happy with people. I feel more fit and active even at this age. He's tremendously active and in his own way, in part of Moscow, part of Russia, they are going to build help in building the bridge, of course, inspired and empowered by Sri. So I thank all of you for everything. This event a memorable one. Thank you.
The wonderful thing about this is meaning that the bridge to eternity can constantly be constructed, and Swami that in their own way and pointed out it's the spirit that does it. It is not something ephemeral, it is eternal. And if it's not in the with the spirit, then material things can only fracture, as we see in our world today. Furthermore, the need for these centers for Sri Ramakrishna's harmonizing, building a bridge to eternity, bringing us in from the outside, withdrawing us in, and then with that consolidation of that force to be able to contribute to, in every little way, the outside. So thank you all. A very important material message is that a team is being served. And we must be not spiritually thirsty, but at least materially hungry. There are some has to do with it. Geneva, going to the world, taking your tea and was either to the or the marriage. But I don't know if you wish to take the spontaneous blessing, then we make sure that they are seated comfortably and you can do it in an orderly fashion. Thank you.